women are supposed to be quieter, right? And if we're not quiet, we're labeled as loud or crazy or all of the words that they want to use, or
Hysterical.
oh, hysterical.
Hysterical is what it used to be called way back when it was, maybe more opinionated or maybe anxious or depressive or, manic or things like that. It was like, oh, that woman is hysterical.
She's PMSing.
Yeah, she's PMSing. Right. It's too emotional,
Right.
which is super harmful. Hi. Welcome to Ventana's podcast, Beyond the Window. My name is Carla Fernandez, licensed clinical social worker and clinical director with Ventana Treatment Programs. And I'd like to introduce my wonderful colleague, Isabelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Isabelle Pilato. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and also a clinical director here for our women's residential treatment.
Awesome. And so today we're going to talk about all things women.
All things women.
All things mental health, women leadership,
Empowerment.
Yeah, everything, all the things.
We got some stats, some receipts.
We do. I really want to talk about how we came to get this beautiful story.
Yes.
I want the origin story.
So,
the public needs to know.
The origin story is I was on Instagram and many of my group chats of sending memes about all things in life, because that's what adulting is all about.
Literally sent to me.
It was sent to me originally and then sent to Carla because we were going to film this podcast. But it was two wonderful ladies filming a podcast. Yeah. They were talking about the let them theory and how that's maybe not the best theory to use in every situation, and talking about specifically with women and more passive communication. And the one lady held up a fake book, as I later learned, because I Googled if it actually existed.
Hence the receipts.
Right. Of a title that said headbutt a motherfucker in the mouth. Yeah. Right. And I got my brain clicking as to this would be awesome. This would be great to talk about as two women who are independent, who are in leadership, and just want to talk about in general where women are at in the world. Sure. And maybe how to headbutt a motherfucker in the mouth.
Yeah. We can maybe end with that. Yeah. You know? I thought that was really cool, and obviously something that I also feel passionate about. But in exploring all of this, we obviously started talking a little bit about kind of how women come to be, right? And the messages that society and our families and our cultures kind of already give us from, just being babies. So I think that's a good place to start. What messages did we receive? What comes to mind for you?
Yeah. Messages I received were mixed, right? I come from a culture and I think me and you were talking about this too, where women are very traditional gendered roles, right? We're raised to start a family. We're raised to be nurturing. We're raised to be feminine and soft.
Yeah.
And my mother is also a very strong feminist. And so I have lots of memories of her going against all of those standards and going, you can be whatever you want to be. If you want kids, have kids. If you don't want kids, don't have kids.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was very different. I would see how friends' families were raising them. And I was also a very active child. I was in sports. I played soccer my entire life. And so I was always more sporty.
Yeah.
More masculine presenting, if we're calling it that. I was never really traditionally feminine.
Yeah.
I didn't start wearing makeup until very late. I didn't really start dating until very late.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely, I felt like I had a delay as most.
Yeah.
Compared to most women, right? Or girls growing up.
Yeah.
And I think that's mainly because of my mom, right? Yeah. I think if I
that's
listen,
super cool though.
Right.
You did receive that messaging, and you're like, yeah, you know what? Actually,
right.
I'm gonna take my time or do this or do that, and not feel like that additional pressure of oh, maybe I should be doing this or I should be doing that, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
What messages did you receive?
We were talking about this, and I mentioned I should be married and have 6 kids by now. Like,
A sports team?
Yeah, I should have a sports team. Because I know within the messaging that I received being Hispanic, I think played a really big role. And traditionally, we're married very young, and we have children, and we're like the caregivers, and we are the people that either do both the, you know, why can't I think of the word? The breadwinning and
Yes.
also like the caretaking.
Yeah.
And that just was not kind of what it was for me. But I did receive a lot of like taking care of others. Taking care of others was a big message that I received within being a woman and being Hispanic. Just taking care of everyone else kind of before myself was a big message. And then that kind of bled into emotions, right? I was like a pretty emotional child, and that too, I think society already had messaging or definitions of what emotions were and what that looked like, and what they were perceived as. And within the messages that I got at home also, it was like, keep your cool, or don't talk about it, or think of others, things like that.
You were allowed certain emotions maybe, but not others.
I think, I mean, yeah, like happiness and being in like good space, right? Was like, absolutely have all of those emotions. But being angry or being upset or creating a boundary or being sad and feeling disappointed was a little bit more frowned upon. It was more so, okay, what are we going to do about it? Keep going, keep doing. Or that emotional suppression of think about A, B, and C, how this affects others. Definitely more play small, play your role, take care of others. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
From what I can recall.
And that taking care of others, it's something that I always talk about in my treatment home when it comes to codependency.
Yes.
And how raising women, and not just women, but raising children to really place them above others can be really damaging, and exactly the opposite of what we're now teaching when they come to treatment as adults, right? Or they seek mental health support as adults, where we teach, no, you actually have to put yourself before others. And that's where I think women traditionally were raised, like, as you were saying, right? Be that nurturing role, be that person that puts everyone before you. And if you don't do that, you're selfish, right? Or you're frowned upon, or maybe your family isolates you. Things like that.
Or you're seen as like the bitch.
Yeah.
The one that's just like difficult. You're always difficult. You always have something to say, or, why can't you just get along? And not to say that feeling your emotions or putting yourself first has to come across or be this like really aggressive thing in nature, but it is taken that way, I think, sometimes. I think now that we're on the topic of like women emotions and then mental health and how the messaging that we try to provide within our homes, I run a men's mental health home, so I kind of see like the other side of it a little bit. But for women, we are taught to kind of shapeshift depending on what everyone else needs, kind of even within leadership, and we'll go down that road, right? But just wanting to meet everyone else's needs, because from such a young age you're taught to take care of others, right? And then what we miss a little bit is the psychological pressure that super unloads on anyone, right? But women, I think disproportionately because of the ways that we're raised, we are then always kind of carrying this emotional labor of taking care of others and let me put myself last. And it does lead to codependency, which then leads you to so many other dangerous situations, right? But if we put it in the perspective of, okay, I have to let everyone else feel first and take care of everyone else, and what happens to my emotions, which leads to, resentment, guilt, anger, anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, lack of boundaries. And then where does that lead you, right? So I think that then kind of throws us into mental health illnesses in a lot of ways, aside from, just inherited and, maybe other traumas that we unfortunately experience. But I think on top of that kind of just adds
There's
a
a
load.
pressure.
Yes.
Right, absolutely. Or when you walk into a room, we're taught to be a little bit vigilant of what is everyone feeling?
Yeah.
What is everyone facial expressions look like?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to check in with someone? Do I need to ask if they're okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're expected to be in that nurturing role at all times, even when we're not doing well.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely.
And how that pressure can really lead to burnout, to compassion fatigue, especially if you're in a helper role as a woman. If you help all day long at your job and then you come home and maybe your family system also expects you to be in that helper role.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah,
it's too much for anyone to like bear that load.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then just be like fine at the end of the day. And I would even like explore like I'm probably a therapist because of how it's conditioned, right? Like I love helping people. I enjoy it. I think it's something that I'm really passionate about, and it was born in like really feeling passionate about helping minorities of all types. And then it kind of like grew from there. But if I'm being honest, I think it was also just within my family role. That was what I was. And you know, I come from a family of all women. And so all of the women were kind of that way. And so that's what I was around. Right. And it's cool, I think, within our treatment program that all of us are also disproportionately like women in leadership roles. I think that that's really cool. But within that, I have also struggled finding my place within leadership in terms of how do I present? How do I present? How do I want to present? And where does that land me as a woman? And where does that land me as a leader? And like what the differences can be. I know for sure going into a leadership role and being just pretty firm and assertive, there's a lot in my head about myself because of all of the messages that I received when I was younger. It felt like wrong, and it felt like shame. I would shame myself kind of about like, was that too assertive? Was that borderline aggressive?
Too harsh?
Yeah. Was I creating a boundary where like maybe I should just let them, and you know, things of that nature. It kind of gets you into second guessing yourself in a lot of places. And it's not so much the fear of being in leadership roles. It's the fear of like, how are people going to perceive me when I'm a woman and I'm supposed to be this way? But in this leadership role, this demands me to be this other way. In order to lead like a successful program.
And I think that's also part of the messages that we receive of like the word that comes off is like softness, right?
Yes.
How feminine is equal to soft, right? And what that really means. I remember there was like a trend of soft girl era.
Oh, yes.
Of like, I don't really know what it meant
all
the way.
Yeah.
But of like how that is more of that traditional women's role, and how are we teaching people to be very soft, maybe very passive, letting things go, not setting boundaries, not being assertive,
putting yourself aside,
not speaking out when that's not really, we don't want that to be the goal for anyone, regardless of gender.
And I think like, hear me out. I do think if it fits for you and it like works, cool. That's
choice.
Great. I don't think that we're coming. I know we're not coming from a place of like, if that's what you prefer, right on. I do think that we are highlighting, or I'd like to highlight, when it becomes a problem. When it becomes a problem that you are not standing up for yourself or creating boundaries or being assertive where you maybe could benefit to be a little bit more assertive for the sake of your own mental health and for the sake of how you carry yourself. I know that that's something that when I worked with women, I really tried to instill. Like creating your boundaries. And that also creates safety for you. It's hard to do. It's hard to create boundaries and be the person that always has something to say, or be like, hey, actually, that doesn't work for me, or, you know, I don't appreciate A, B, and C. It's hard to say that out loud, but also there's a safety you're creating behind it for yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally. So I think it's important to distinguish like why it's important that we're talking about this and why it's important to highlight how some of these messages that we do receive and the society kind of places on us are harmful, which then kind of goes back to like, let them. Well, no, don't let them.
Right.
Like, headbutt that motherfucker in the mouth. Yeah.
And we don't condone violence.
No, we don't.
We don't.
Yeah.
I guess.
Perhaps.
What came up in my head too, emotional safety versus physical safety.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about that a lot in trauma groups that we do and like in attachment. I run attachment of physical safety has always been a sensitive issue, I think, for women, right? We're taught different techniques to keep ourselves physically safe, right? Walking with your keys in between your hands.
Yep.
Carrying pepper spray, right? Don't walk places alone at
Don't
night.
keep your iPods in. I mean, your AirPods. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you never know. Yeah.
And then there's emotional safety. And I think when we're talking about being assertive and letting people know when they crossed a line or crossed a boundary, that's what we call creating emotional safety within my system, right? Whether it's with my social support, with my friends, with my partner, with my family, with my colleagues, with my boss, whatever it may be, we have to figure out techniques of how to be assertive and yet calm, right?
Yes.
Be vocal, but not be harsh. Right. And that's part of like the softness we're taught. The softness almost overrides that we can't speak up, we can't advocate, and therefore emotional safety isn't on the table.
Yeah.
Right?
And we just cross it off altogether.
Right. I'm suppressing it. I'm ignoring when things go wrong. I'm ignoring when people cross my boundaries. I'm ignoring when things just happen. And I'm like, well, that's the way it is. Yeah. Right. I found myself doing that multiple times throughout my lifetime of especially hearing like violence against women, right? I run women's program. We unfortunately get a lot of trauma, a lot of domestic violence, right? And hearing, I mean, we have the stats too, right? And hearing personal stories and personal experiences, you really start to question, right? Have we progressed as a society? Yeah. Not to put doom and gloom on anything, because obviously we have progressed.
Yeah, we're doing a whole lot these days.
Right. And there's still so much violence. There's still so many countries, not just the US, if we're talking about worldwide, that women are treated less than, right? That the gender pay gap still exists, that women are supposed to dress certain ways, right? Things like that are still happening.
And age certain ways.
Yeah, especially in Southern California, that one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then, on Instagram, all you see is like aging, just going off of that a little bit, aging in a super graceful, soft way, but not fully aging.
Yeah.
Like you can look like you're aging, but you can't fully look.
Yeah. Don't have too many wrinkles.
Yes. Like go get that looked at, go get that taken care of. Make it look softer and more like appeasing, to the viewer or what have you, especially in, Southern California. I think there's like a very big pressure. And then there was like the differences between like allowing men to age however it is that they age, right? And then having women have to age a certain way. Not to say that men don't have their own pressures, absolutely, but I think it's like really, really emphasized with women a whole lot.
And I always think about the gray hair, right?
I love gray hair. I keep trying to convince my mom to go gray. She's like getting a little bit, but she'll still dye it. I think it's I think it's beautiful.
It's great. Go gray if you want to go gray. Yeah. Obviously, dye your hair when you want to dye your hair.
Yeah.
And I think there is this panic that I hear the older I get, and my friends are getting grays. Oh my God, I have gray hair, and then and I'm like, it's good.
Yeah,
right? You're pull that shit out if you want.
Totally fine. Yeah.
I think that's where it is. It's like there's this anxiety about aging. Aging itself brings so many difficulties, and then if we add women and like aging standards, that gets a lot more difficult, more pressure onto it. There's a statistic I pulled up about, I don't know if the category is body modification, right? But we're talking about Botox and filler and all of the anti-aging procedures. Women account for approximately 85 to 95% of all cosmetic Botox and filler procedures globally. In the US, about 2.5 million people, mostly women, receive Botox annually. And again, Carla and I are coming from a standpoint of get what you want to get to your face. But when we're talking about it has created a standard,
Yeah.
that's something
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah.
Where now we're creating additional anxiety
Mhm.
in society
Yeah.
on women
Yeah.
to
Just-
look a certain way.
Just something else to worry about. You know, on top of everything else, just something else to like have to watch out for. If we're going like
Yes.
backwards in that way, where we're just talking about emotional, physical safety, then it's also like, how is everyone else perceiving me? And then how do I feel about myself? And what does that tell me about me? It's just, there's a lot of pressures, I think, on top of like the psychological pressures that we were mentioning. There's a lot of pressure like within the world to exist and how we exist and how to best do it.
Yes. Let's talk about how we exist. How are we supposed to dress? Like, what have you learned? How are we supposed to look?
Put together.
Yeah.
Put together, presentable, nice. I would say, like, I'm thinking of my mom as I'm like going through this. I'm like, what would she tell me? You know, just like put some makeup on. Where are you going? You can go like that. Like, you know, just with love, I guess, you know, like meaning really, really well. But yeah, just always like definitely put together. And then again, that goes back into the messaging for who? Like at this point, I love all things like makeup and like do my hair. And then like, I love nice clothes. I love getting things for myself. And at this point it is for me. Like I really enjoy it. I enjoy it so much. It's like the funnest thing ever. However, like that's not where I think it was, that is not where I was born. It was more so present yourself a certain way for others, which goes back into like the taking care of, you know. But yeah, it was for family, or we're going to the store, or what are people going to think, and like
the what are people going to think?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. What about you?
I was thinking in my head, I don't remember much about like makeup and stuff. Again, that wasn't really emphasized in my household. I do remember, and she'll probably hate that I'm saying this, but my mom always used to want me to wear dresses and skirts and be, again, more traditionally feminine presenting. I mean, she still tells me to wear more of those things, right?
Really?
But that wasn't my vibe. Still not my vibe. And so I think that was like the only thing that I really felt that I didn't want to do. I know when I was little, obviously they dressed me in whatever, right?
Course.
A lot of dresses and skirts. And in terms of like makeup and things like standards, was like you wear makeup, right? Look that presentable, but don't wear too much makeup because then people will comment on it. Right? I think especially like aging in clothing, right? Don't wear anything too revealing. People are gonna judge. But
then like too covered up is like,
what are you doing? Right? It's, I think what we're getting to in this discussion is there's so many really confusing opposing standards. Right? In communication, in how we present, in how we're supposed to act and behave, right? Be soft and feminine, but yet be powerful. Wear makeup, but don't wear too much, right?
I wrote this down. Be confident, but still likable. Speak up, but like not too much. Be assertive, but not too assertive to where it sounds aggressive. It's like this constant balance of how, and then again, what keeps like sticking out to me is how do we make it more digestible for others?
Right.
It feels like it's kind of always in the back of my mind. And I know, I mean, maybe this is just more so my perspective, but I want to get yours, is like, how did that come into the room with you when you became a clinical director? Like when you took on a leadership role, do you feel like there was any of that at play with you?
Absolutely. I think I had a little bit of imposter syndrome with one, taking the role, which I felt like comfortable with enough because it was already part of what I was already doing, right? I was a primary clinician for so long. And then I felt a little imposter syndrome with, but now I have to oversee staff, right? And oversee male and female staff, right? And so there was a little bit of this anxiety, maybe not anxiety to extent, but more of like a thought of how is managing men different, right?
Yes.
And coming into leadership as a woman, are they going to see me different?
Yeah.
I am very different than the clinical director before
Yeah.
in terms of how I look and my age, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that was part of it. And then obviously in a leadership role, you have to present yourself a certain way, you network yourself a certain way, and trying to find my own. I was really careful in trying to find my own groove, not necessarily what
someone else's
groove was, or how other people spoke, or things. And I think it's different for us, obviously, because we're therapists, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? There's
For
like
sure.
an adaptability that we
Yes.
have.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think especially talking to families, talking to loved ones, talking to support systems, showing up in the house a certain way, right? There is this balance of softness and of assertiveness that you have to practice, and then also model for our clients, because that's who matters at the end of the day. It's like, how do we model maybe a little bit of what we're struggling with or what we're learning, and also giving them the techniques, giving them the tools, right? So I think that's also like a huge point too.
What's something that you felt you had to unlearn within this role, if anything?
I had to unlearn to stop apologizing. I think that's a big one. And I don't really know where I picked it up necessarily, of when I said something or I gave feedback, if there was not a bad reaction, but just like you can see that someone was like, oh, like I felt hurt or
like
sad.
that was too much
I had
to take
to
on in that
like
moment.
stop myself from being like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't, mean, not that I didn't mean that, but I didn't
like,
mean
I didn't
to
mean for it
hurt, right? I think I had that nurture, let me take care of that other person.
And your emotions and what you're feeling about it and hold your hand through it.
Right, which is exactly what we were talking about in the beginning, is we're raised to, oh, I said something that I set a boundary over, or
I meant,
you can't do it. I meant, but then it's like, ooh.
How are you with it?
Right. Yeah. What's something you had to unlearn?
I would say probably the same. I think for me, it's a little different because I do run a men's home. So when I ran as a clinical director, the teen home, it was much easier, and it was easier for me to sit in as like that nurturer and as a, a leader and kind of a role model. It was so easy and really, like kind of my origin story behind wanting to become a licensed clinical social worker and do this type of work was when I was working in a residential home for girls. I just found it just so amazing, and I was so inspired by it, and I wanted to go back to school to continue. So when I did it, I was like, easy, it's like I felt like a mom with boundaries, obviously, but just like leading them in a different way. So there wasn't much, I think, there, but now that I'm running a men's home, it's definitely different. I do think like I have had to unlearn, similarly to you, apologizing and having to explain myself.
Yes, the over-explaining.
Oh my gosh, I am an over-explainer to the core. That's just always who I've been since I was very young, like just explaining my side of the story and making sure that you understand it and that you understand that I didn't mean harm or what have you, right? And so I think that has been a huge, huge, huge part of my unlearning now. Just, I know that I mean well. I know that ethically I am sound. I'm making ethically sound decisions, and I want what's best for you within your treatment and within the home, right? So I don't want to have to explain it all the time. I think over apologizing too. I think that one was a little less hard for me in terms of just like if I'm saying something.
Right.
For me, for you, for them, for whoever, I'm not going to apologize that you have your feelings hurt because you don't like how that feels for you. Knowing that I say it with respect and with kindness and with care, but firmly. I think like at first maybe I did have a little bit of difficulty with that. But then it just kind of was like, okay, well, I'll help you take care of your emotions, but I'm not going to like curb what my needs are, or the needs within the home are, to kind of appease what it is that you need or what you feel like, right?
Yeah.
But also now that we're just like talking about like leadership and how that felt. And like you talked about like imposter syndrome and if you even felt like, gosh, I'm here, how do I do this? And the previous clinical director was like a little bit different, and how do I show up, and ages and all of the things. I think for me, it had to do a lot with trying not to over soften.
Yeah.
I don't find myself like an aggressive person, but I am an assertive person. I've always been an assertive person. You're going to know kind of how I feel about things, my take on things, and you're going to know it for me or for others. Like if I find something inappropriate for others, I'm going to be the first one to say, hey, like, hold on, what's going on? And things like that. And I think at first, within the men's home, the word that they often use is mean. Like she's mean or she's like intimidating is what I got within like the first milieu, I want to say. And I had like good rapport with them, but then I would have to explore like, what do you mean?
Right. Where did
Like
that
what
come from?
yeah, like what do you mean? Can you tell me a little bit more about like what you think that I said that was mean? And it really what it was like I was setting a boundary with you.
Right.
And that felt really uncomfortable for me to call you out on your behavior. And you didn't want to feel that. And so therefore I'm mean. And I'm intimidating because I'm just telling you how to treat me as a person or how to treat others as a person within this home, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of I had to unlearn because I initially was like, oh my gosh, I am mean.
I can't do that.
I can't let them, be inappropriate at whatever capacity, as opposed to, no, hold on, I'm leading this home. And if, a peer within the home, another client is feeling uncomfortable, I have to say something.
Right.
Because that's why I'm there.
That's why
I'm the one who's going to
protecting.
regulate. Yes, we're protecting each other and regulate kind of like the emotional safety within the home for everyone. And then it does look like leading staff that are men within the home, and how is that different, and how will they take to me, and does it feel different for them too? I think I have found like a good balance between like being super friendly and like personable, because that's also something I enjoy. I really like to like build rapport with staff and clients, and I enjoy it. I love having that like camaraderie and like that humor within the home, but then it's also like when it's time to be a little bit more assertive and create some of those lines, I'm okay with doing that.
Yeah.
But it took a little bit of hold on, I'm okay. There was one time, it was interesting. The house manager in the home for myself, the home that I run, she had this conversation, and she basically like summed it up really well. She said, I love the way you're always friendly, but then as soon as you like make a boundary or you like state a rule or something or provide a directive, it's like angry woman. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like a little bit at first, right? I think again, we've grown with it, and we've gotten into like a really good flow, but that is like the best way I can sum it up. It felt like if I was making something a little bit more concrete or addressing it, it felt like, ooh,
Angry.
yes. Oh, she's mad. No feelings about it, I promise. Or maybe feelings of like, ouch, that sucks. But more so like, I'm drawing the line and this is where we're at.
Yeah. And what a mirror to like outside of treatment too, of how many labels get put on women when they are assertive in and outside of the workplace, right? I'm sure there are a lot of women out there that can relate in terms of setting some kind of boundary, being assertive with their needs, whatever it may be in the workplace, and also having that label on them. And how unfair that is, right? And I hope society continues to grow and progress in this. And that's a very traditional issue of women are supposed to be quieter, right? And if we're not quiet, we're labeled as loud or crazy or all of the words that they want to use, or
Hysterical.
Oh, hysterical.
Hysterical is what it used to be called way back when it was, maybe more opinionated or maybe anxious or depressive or, manic or things like that. It was like, oh, that woman is hysterical.
She's PMSing.
Yeah, she's PMSing. Right. It's too emotional, which is super harmful. But I think what you were just stating kind of also what sticks out to me is we are working here and speaking about this subject as two female leaders within the mental health field. So there's a lot of education there too. And we are very aware of these things, right? So I think it's like, easier for us to say, hold on, I was starting to make these boundaries and this felt uncomfortable, but I did it anyway. And I knew this, that, and the other, right? There's
The
like,
defenses came back.
yes,
Right. We can see that.
yes. But then it's like, we talk about then women within like the world don't always have that education.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking about clients, like female clients, like I remember when I would introduce like boundaries, a lot of them didn't know what they were.
Yes.
Like communication styles, a lot of them felt like assertive was mean and
Mm-hmm.
unkind.
We to
You know, so
unlearn
it's like,
that.
yeah. So these women that I'm thinking about that are coming to mind are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? So it's like they went without learning this, and then talking or thinking about where that places us and what that makes us more susceptible to.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about codependency, right? And codependency is in a nutshell like taking care of others before taking care of yourself, and also just like making it, I guess, more impossible to fully take care of others and yourself, because it's like you guys are intertwined.
Yes.
And how that maybe that, along with not being able to or not feeling able to create boundaries and not being able to or feeling able to kind of make others uncomfortable before yourself, where that puts us within the world also as victims. I think it like perpetuates a cycle for us.
Absolutely.
And that brought me back to a statistic that you had. Do you have it? Or
Yeah.
bring it up. Yeah.
So we have a statistic of victims of violence. About 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So with that statistic, I know the word victim comes with a lot of connotation. You can use what word fits for you in your own head,
Survivor.
right?
Yeah,
Survivor can be one. When we talk about susceptibility and what that means is because there is this tendency, this push, this pressure to put everyone's needs above our own, unfortunately, that means that our needs get pushed aside a little bit quicker and more frequently than maybe our partners, maybe our family members, our friends, whoever we're providing support to.
Yeah.
And when I don't have the energy, the time to check in with myself, check in with my needs, check in with, do a relationship inventory, whatever it may be, that unfortunately will lead to ignoring red flags, right? Or ignoring the yellow flags, or getting into patterns of toxic relationships where things can really escalate to violence.
Yeah.
Or if we grew up in family systems, right? You talked about this way early on, right? Talking about family dynamics in which maybe there was a pattern of men being violent in the home, and how unfortunately, and that being okay, or just maybe not being okay, maybe just being ignored, right?
Yeah.
That maybe it was never said it was okay, but maybe it was just something that it is what it is. They just accepted it.
Yeah.
And how that can lead to patterns in relationships later in life where that unfortunately happens to us ourselves, right?
And
Same.
it's more, no one really bats an eyelash, or we don't bat an eyelash, because it's like, oh, I saw this. This is familiar. I'm already used to it. It's messaging that I received. This is normal.
What it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
There's also an interesting statistic on PTSD.
Oh, I did see that one too.
Compared with men, women are twice as likely to experience PTSD. Women are more likely to have hypervigilance, feel depressed, and have trouble feeling emotions. Twice as likely. The 1 in 3, right? We've been in a room of multiple women.
Yeah.
Right? 1 in 3
of us. Yeah.
Twice as likely. And so similar with, I have another one on mental health conditions. Each year, 1 in 5 women in the U.S. have a mental health problem such as depression, PTSD, or an eating disorder, right? Approximately 85 to 95% of people with anorexia nervosa or bulimia, and 65% of people with a binge eating disorder are women.
Yeah.
Right. There are direct correlations to the issues and the pressures that we're talking about to rates of mental health among women.
I think, go ahead. Sorry. No. Yeah. I think we could learn, like, as men and women, if we're talking about like counterparts or, differences in gender roles, I think we can learn a little bit more from each other. I think is what I have found within my work with primarily adult men within the mental health field. I think, and within that statistic, also one of them that you read was men are more likely to feel angry and have problems with alcohol or drugs. Maybe that's like a podcast subject for another day. But I think like that is what I see a whole lot of. And so where then I think would be super cool to like overlap is, I believe in certain situations, in certain circumstances, men do that because they don't feel like they can be emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then going back to family dynamics, the same way that women are conditioned to be a certain way, right? So if I'm thinking about like, I'm Hispanic within like a Hispanic household, the girl is supposed to be taking care of like the brother and like doing their dishes and doing their laundry and like making sure that they're home at a certain time because you're a woman and you should be doing this and you should be at home. And for a man within that same household, it would look very different, right? Like you don't really have to take care of others, and that's not your job, and you can do whatever you need and not really take anyone else into consideration. Not to say that they don't have their own struggles, but they are taught to deal with them in a different way. You're allowed to like be out and do things, and so then of course like naturally if you are seen as weak when you are emotional or feeling certain things as a man, then you will go towards other things, right? So it's like even within that statistic, or even within the statistic of like 1 in 5 women in the United States has a mental health problem such as depression, anxiety, so on and so forth. Maybe men do have them, they just don't speak about it as much. And then that also goes back to the conditioning and the messages that we receive from being babies up until now. And then if women were maybe a little bit like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not angry, bolder and more selfish in some ways. And if men were more or welcome to be more vulnerable and open with their emotions and their experiences, like we might be at a happy medium.
Absolutely,
right? Taking some really good qualities from each other so that we could all succeed.
Yeah. And I think the clinically, the suppression, again, generalized statement between men and women, very different. Right? Women suppress the emotions that we're not allowed to have. Men suppress most, if not all, right? And turn to other modes of release. Right? And I think also we were talking a little bit earlier about like milestones, right? That we're raised to have these milestones in life, right? Go to school, get a job, have a family, things like that. I think one pressure often, and I see this a lot with younger clients who come through this house, is they start to feel undervalued and ashamed when they don't subscribe or they aren't at the place that society says we're supposed to be at, right? I'm 25 and I don't have a kid yet. I don't have a partner. I don't maybe have a career longstanding yet, and how that can really add to the depression and the anxiety that of the mental health, right? I mean, I don't know about you. I get asked probably on a weekly basis, where's my partner? Where's my child? Right? That I don't have.
I think, it's really cool. I think in that sense, my mom has been like really awesome at just being like, have your fun, do whatever you gotta do. Like she's really proud of me in terms of like what I'm doing, and has never, I can honestly say she's never been like, where's your boyfriend? Or like, have you ever thought of having kids or anything like that? Maybe like aunts and stuff like that will ask once in a while. So I don't know that I share that within people asking me, but I feel it. Like within society and like people asking about like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a partner? Nope. I'm like so good. And I think like even one time we had like this conversation, I think all of us talking about like where you see yourself, within like partnership and marriage and kids and things like that. And I find like when I give people my answer, they're like, really? Like, oh, no. Okay. Not that I would never want to like marry or have children, but that's like not the top of my mountain. And so it's like people are like, oh, then what? Or things like that, or don't authentically believe it. And I'm like, no, I think it's beautiful.
They authentically believe it is such a good point.
Yeah.
But you don't know yet.
Yes.
Maybe when you find
Wait till
someone.
you get older. Wait till you like you don't know what love is until you have your own child or things like that, or like just like being maternal in way, like I have felt maternal my whole life. Like I feel like I've always been a caregiver, and like I do feel like a maternal individual myself, with even without having kids, right? And there's like love everywhere to be found, not just within like partnerships, but I do think that definitely is something that comes up, even though my family doesn't say it, like within society, and like what's society expects of you at a certain age,
what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, and then on the other end, it's like, okay, if you don't at a certain age, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, what is the matter?
There
then?
must be
Yeah,
something
like
wrong
you
with you.
must be a hoot, because why? And it's like, that's what I mean. Like, they don't authentically believe. Like, no, like actually, there's nothing like wrong. I mean, maybe up to
There's nothing
perspective,
wrong with you.
but just I'm hanging
just
out.
different.
I'm like really, really devoted to my job and like my family and things that I like to do, and that's different.
And what beautiful values that is, right? You have a question written down. How do women unintentionally reinforce harmful standards for each other? I think that right there, the questions that we get asked, right? That's not unintentional harm.
Yeah.
It's not malicious.
Yeah,
It's not coming from a bad place. And
yeah, it continues to kind of like perpetuate the idea that like you should.
Right.
Why don't you? What's going on? Even going back to like milestones, right? Like people get congratulated for like getting married and having children and things like that. And it's just like, I got like a new job. I got my license. I got my master's. I'm like all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And again, going back into like throwing it back into mental health, that could also be like big psychological pressures that then begin to increase like the anxiety and the depression and like feeling less than and feeling that shame and that guilt of like what I need to be versus what I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going into like the idea of independent women.
Yeah.
Family systems have changed so much, right? We have more single parents out there. We have just changing family dynamics over a time, right? We used to be raised in villages, and now we're not.
Yeah.
And the idea of an independent woman and how that's sometimes not understood.
Yeah.
Of how can someone be without children, or
how selfish are you?
Right. They called spinsters or crazy cat ladies, right? There's all
like
these
cats.
labels.
Just kidding.
I've never heard a man be called a crazy man.
crazy
cat man.
Dog man?
Dog man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there's all these labels for women.
Yeah. And not to say again, like I don't want to sound like, oh my God, men. Love men. Again, that's another podcast. But yeah, there's just like there's differences and struggles for sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to like forward looking. I think these are fun little questions. What kind of world do we want younger girls growing up in? What does it make you think of?
I like desperately want a world where women feel both safe and heard, physically, emotionally safe, right? And heard, and valued, right? I go back to like value and self-esteem, right? We talked about aging, we talked about beauty, and we talked about
exhausting.
It's exhausting, and how that really can impact our value and therefore impact my self-esteem, right? And how I myself can build my value, my self-esteem, my power, because it's really hard to feel powerful and assertive and feel like I have autonomy and feel like I can do anything in the world if I don't feel like society values me, values my voice,
or values that.
And I desperately want a world in which anyone who identifies as a woman, right, can feel heard and powerful in their own right. I think in the US, it's different, right?
For sure.
In the US, it's different. I think there's many countries that don't have the same views, and that's their culture, and I respect that. I hear that. And in the US, I would love to see positive change in that direction.
I love that. I would agree with everything that you said. I think it was like beautifully stated, and it hits on everything that I was thinking of. What advice would we give younger women?
I'll pass that on to you, co-host. What advice would you give to younger women?
I think kind of even going on in like both what kind of world do we want younger girls growing up in, everything you said I completely agree with, and then kind of intertwining with advice. So a little bit of both. Like I would love women to be able to continue to live in a world, because I think there's some of this already going on, not to say that we don't, have any of it, but I would love to see more of this, and also give advice to women to be bold and take up space. Like it
Yeah.
is totally okay to take up space and not feel guilty about it,
Mm-hmm.
and not feel like, oh, does anyone else want to take the mic? Like, is everyone else okay? Just like take it, right? Be bold and outspoken and opinionated and ambitious, and just kind of like go, right? I
Yeah.
think I would love to see more of that, and I would love to give advice to younger women on that same note.
And if society or someone else labels you during that time, remembering that you have people in your corner.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have people in your corner, right? That you
Yeah.
can turn to express, I did this and I'm trying to do this, and this is what I got labeled as. And really looking at when people label, it's like their defenses, right? Their
Yeah.
uncomfortability, and how do I
Yeah.
not take that on,
Yeah.
right, as my own to fix.
Yeah, and I think like it's so awesome that that exists, because even just within kind of like this right now, it's how I feel about like leadership within La Ventana for
Yeah.
us right now. Like I think even talking about like some of the questions, what did you have to learn or things like that, and like having imposter syndrome and things of that nature. Very early on, I've always been like pretty transparent about like this is what's going on for me and things like that. So I would tell Sharon, and Sharon basically like helped a lot with it unlearning. It was just kind of like, why are you explaining yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Like you made a good call. That was a good call, and you care about A, B, and C, but why are you explaining it? Like
Yeah.
take up space without feeling like you have to like explain or adjust or make smaller or, make it fit for everyone, right? And I think
Right.
that has been huge within my ability to lead within like this treatment program, because I do feel like empowered to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so important to have someone like a Sharon
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
whether it's in your personal life, your partner, whoever
Yeah.
it is, who can say, go you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do
Fly, go.
this.
Yeah.
Right. It goes back to the attachment perspective, right? When I have that tether, when
Mhm.
I have that secure connection with someone,
Yeah.
I'm able to explore,
Yeah.
right? I'm free to explore. I'm safe
Mhm.
to explore.
Mhm.
But with all the issues that we kind of talked about and covered, it can feel really hard to
do
feel
that.
safe enough to explore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's wrap up here. One of the last questions that I think like I would love to answer with you would be, what do we want strength to look like for women? Like moving forward, what would
Yeah. Strength for women. I think how we should define it moving forward, or my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is to be opinionated, to be taking up space,
Yeah.
to dress how you want to dress, to look
Yeah.
how you want to look,
Yeah.
to discover and define what feminine is to you, what soft or not soft is
Mhm.
to you,
Mhm.
and to look within for when we are struggling with pressure, struggling with emotional issues, whatever it may be, of like, how do we start to trust ourselves rather than the standards
Yeah.
that get put onto us.
Yeah. I would agree. I think everything you said, and I think what I'll throw in there is strength. I would love for strength for women to look like less explanations.
Yeah.
Like taking up space, and then just like it being the space. And
Stop apologizing.
yes, stop apologizing. No as a full sentence. All the good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching La Ventana's Beyond the Window podcast. You can catch us on YouTube and Spotify, and we'll see you in the next episode.